Well, hello and welcome to tonight's live stream. As if you couldn't tell in the chat section, I'm really excited about tonight's live stream because finally we're going to do a pretty fun part of programming here. Not just, writing stuff that we've written 100 times, but possibly something that you guys may or may not have ever encountered before, and also I'm really excited to kind of show you guys a way to organize your code in such a way that you can add to it without adding a bunch of if statements. For example, one of the goals that we have is to integrate this e-commerce site with many different, or at least a couple different payment gateways. And so it really doesn't matter which ones we choose to use. What we want to be able to do is in our config file or in the database or something of that nature, we want to be able to define what payment gateway we're going to use in one place, and then our code will just use it and know how to handle that gateway regardless. So we won't have to go back and change any code in our shopping cart page or anything like that. We just update it and it uses the correct code to make the payments and everything else that we need to do with that. And so that was one of the most powerful things I've ever learned, and I'm still learning that in programming, and it cleans up your code in such a way that it allows you to just be very flexible and powerful, and also helps you not have as many bugs. But we'll get into that. First of all, if you're new here, welcome. If it's your first video, that's fine. We are on episode 12. You're more than welcome to start here. You don't have to have gone through the rest of the series. I do want to show you guys real quick that if you go to bitbucket.org and go to /parhamcurtis, this is my public repositories here. If you look for live e-commerce YouTube course, go ahead and click on that, and then click on source code. And then right here, this is the branch selector. You go ahead and grab the branch from the last episode. So we are on episode 12 now. So if you grab episode 11, that is where we left off in the last video. And as soon as I'm done with tonight's episode, I will upload episode 12, and you can check your work against what we've done tonight. And so I think that's about it as far as housekeeping, but I do want to say one additional thing. In all the previous live streams, what I've done is I've not really prepared anything in advance, and I just kind of jumped on and we just kind of figured it out through there. And I just want to have a disclaimer that I felt that this was important enough to do a little bit of work ahead of time. So I do have reference code that I'm going to be looking at while doing tonight's presentation, but as always, if you guys have any questions, please stop me. Don't hesitate to ask. I will show you every line of code, and we will go through that together, and we're going to be well on our way to having the shopping cart accept credit cards by the end of the tonight. So a few more people jumping on. Ashraf, Alex, you're welcome. She said thanks for your efforts. Denise is here. Hello everyone. So happy that you guys could all join. With that, and because we have so much to do, I would like to just dive right in. But as always, please feel free. If you guys have any comments, questions, concerns, please ask them. And if you want to help me out, please make sure you are subscribed. About 70% of my views come from unsubscribed people. So I'd like to, if you're here and you're not subscribed and you want to support me, please subscribe, like, comment, and share this video. And if you're feeling overly ambitious, you can send me a super chat. All right, guys, enough of messing around. Let's jump right in. And so what we want to do first and foremost is just kind of talk about a little bit about what we're going to do. Essentially what we want to do, let me just jump off where we left in the last video. In the last video, we created the ability for us to add things to a shopping cart, and then when we went to the shopping cart, we can update quantities and remove things from the shopping cart, and we kind of have the total here, like a running total. We do not have anything to do with this with checkout. Nothing has been done here, so that's what we're focusing on tonight. We're actually going to go through the checkout process, allow people to enter credit card information and a shipping address, and we will charge them the appropriate amount, hopefully. Okay, well, not hopefully, but we will. Okay. The other short disclaimer that I want to do here is, listen, and maybe I'll just go full screen for a second to talk about this, because I really want to get this point across. We are not going to be able to do every payment gateway out there. That's not the point. The point is to do a couple, maybe 2, 3 payment gateways, and we'll show how to integrate with those 3. If you don't like those 3, or they're not available in your country, it really doesn't matter. You can follow along and add the ability to your framework as we go, and then if those gateways do, a lot of those will continuously add countries as they have support for them, and you may all of a sudden be able to use one of those. So go ahead and don't skip the code for adding a specific gateway. But more importantly, I'm not really teaching you how to integrate with a specific gateway. My goal is to teach you guys rather how to program and learn how you would integrate any payment gateway, regardless if it's authorized.net or PayPal or Stripe or anything like that. So what we need to do, yes, JJ says payment systems need HTTPS, which is an SSL cert, and he asks, can I explain in future videos how to implement it in a server? Yes, I will. I will explain that. I actually, we all may be on different development things, but I actually implemented this on my local host XAMPP server with HTTPS or SSL cert. But we could talk about that, and we'll talk about why we need that and other things like that. So my point is that tonight we're going to start with an integration with Stripe. Stripe has a nice API for developers. I think currently it's available in 32 countries or maybe more by now, and it's a great service and it's not too expensive. I do plan on in the next video integrating with PayPal, because so many people are familiar with that and want to do that as well. And then if you guys want to leave some comments about other ones you would like to integrate with, maybe we'll do a third one if interest allows. But again, it doesn't matter if you can't use Stripe in your country. Go ahead and follow along. The point is to learn how to integrate with an API. And most of the APIs, once you kind of start getting familiar with integrating with APIs, it doesn't matter if it's a payment gateway or an email service or something like that. As long as you know how to integrate with an API and read documentation, you can do this, okay? Especially because a lot of them have SDKs, which they will write, which an SDK is essentially a library, and they usually write them in a few different languages that you can install into your code base and use it and integrate even easier. And we will be doing that tonight. All right, so let's see here. William says, hello. I'm great and happy you made it out today. I am happy as well. So let's jump back over to my screen real quick, and the first thing that we need to do is, there's a couple things we could do first, but what I want to do is go ahead and build out our database migration, because we are going to need a new table to track our transactions. Okay, so if you look at our current database structure, we have several tables, but we want a separate table just to track transactions. Okay, Kausar says hello. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, guys. I'm really illiterate when it comes to other languages and other nationalities and names, so hopefully you can forgive me. All right, so here we go. Let's go ahead and jump in and create a database migration. So the first thing we want to do is go into a terminal or command line and navigate to your project. And then what we're going to do is just run gen migrations. Okay. Once you've done that, it will create a new migration file inside the migrations folder. And this is what we're going to use to add a table to our database. So the first thing I want to do is just define a variable, and we're going to call that transactions. Okay, that's what I want the table to be called. Then we need to create the table. So the method to do that is going to be this create table, and we're just going to pass the table name in as the only parameter for that. The next thing I want to do is I want to have timestamps for these transactions. So there's a method just called this add timestamps. And I got a little syntax error here. Let me fix that. So this add timestamps, and then we're also going to pass the table into that. Okay, so that will generate a created at and an updated at column in our table. The next thing we want to do is we want to have a relation between these transactions and the cart. And so we're going to use a cart ID. So go ahead and do this add column, and we'll pass in the table, and then we'll pass in the name of the column we're adding, which will be cart underscore ID, and that will be a type of an integer. Okay. The next thing we want to do is we're going to add another column. This column is going to be our gateway. And what I mean by that is because I want to store what gateway was used for each transaction so that we know how to handle these in the future. And that'll make more sense in a little bit, but let's just go ahead and add it for now. What we're going to do with this gateway is give this a varchar. It'll be a type of varchar, or variable character there. And we're going to give it a size of 15. It doesn't need to be much longer than that. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to copy this a few times because I'm going to need several, a few more of these. We're actually going to need quite a few columns in this table, so just knock it out real quick. The type, that will be, let's make that 25 characters. Then what we want to do is we want to store the amount of the transaction, and so we're going to use a decimal type on that. That's the most accurate way to store money. So this will get table, and we'll call the column amount, and then it will be a type of decimal. And then the last parameter when you're setting up a decimal takes an array, and we need to tell it the precision, which will be 10 for us, and we're going to give it the scale, which will be 2. Okay. Basically, this creates a decimal that is 10 digits in precision, and it gives it a scale of 2, so it's going to have 2 decimal places. So we're dealing with currency that will be sufficient. It'll be more accurate than, say, like a float or a double, something like that. And I wrote decimal for some reason. That is not correct. It's just an A there, decimal. Okay. Continuing on, we're going to do another column here, and this column will actually be another integer, but this will be a, actually, you know what, this one won't be. We're going to do a charge ID. Now a charge ID is going to be whatever ID we get back from the payment gateway, and so those can vary in length. And so just to be safe on this one, I am going to go ahead and give this one, oops, I'm going to go ahead and give this one a size of 255. Now the reason I'm using a varchar instead of an int here is because like I know, like Stripe, they don't give you an integer back. It's a combination of alphanumeric value basically. And it looks like to me it's about 40 to 60 characters long probably. So 255 may be overkill. However, not sure what gateways we're going to integrate, so I just want to make sure we're not going to get something truncated and then have bad data in our database. All right. So next up, after the charge ID, we just want to have a Boolean that tells us if the transaction was successful or not. This is going to allow us to easily basically search these in a database. Okay, so we'll just call that success. And then this one, what we'll do is we'll make this a tiny int. All right, and then yeah, we're just going to make that a tiny int. And that'll be a Boolean. The next thing that we want to do is go ahead and, if it's not successful, a lot of these payment gateways will return a reason for failure. It could be some sort of like fraud detection, or it could be insufficient funds on the card. It could be a bad a bad connection, a bad API call, something like that, or even a bad connection between the gateway and the credit card company, their API. And so we want to store that information. So we'll call that we'll just call that reason, okay? And that'll give us a reason for failure. Okay, it's basically what we're storing there. Most of the time that's going to be null, hopefully, but we do want to have that information at our disposal if we want to. I'm going to go ahead and give this one a size of 155. That should be sufficient. That's a lot of characters. We could bump that up to 255, but we'll just make sure that the gateways that we integrate with don't store more than that. If they do, we can always raise that up. The next thing I want to do is store a card brand. Now this will not always be available to us, but with some gateways it will be. And so what it means for this is, like, let's store Visa or MasterCard or PayPal or something like that, the type of card that was used. That way we can display that later back to the user in a thank you page or a receipt or something and say, hey, you used a Visa card to purchase this. It's just a little bit more of a verification. It also helps them with, if they need to refund or something like that, they'll know what card they used. We'll give them another indicator as well in a second. So card brand is going to be a varchar as well, and that will be a size, we'll just make that 25, which is probably a little overkill again, but I don't think it's going to matter all that much. It also depends on the scale that these will be. Kappa wrap. All right, man. See you later on. Have a great day, brother. All right. So card brand. The next thing that we want to do is go ahead and add a column called last four. And what this will be is the last four digits on their credit card. That way we do not want to store their entire credit card number in our database by any means. In fact, we're going to learn a little bit later, we don't even want to send that information to our servers. There's something called PCI compliance, that if you're going to be accepting transactions through credit cards or anything like that, you are responsible for all security and everything like that. And you're also responsible for any fraud and things like that that could happen. And so in order to alleviate that, we're going to be not sending the credit card information at all to our servers at any time. It's going to go directly to our gateways, and in so doing, it's going to make it that much easier for us to be PCI compliant, because we're passing that liability on to the gateway provider that we're using. For example, if I'm using Stripe or PayPal, if I'm sending credit card information directly to them from the client and it never touches my server, I am not liable at all for any fraud that happens or anything like that. Or if someone just happens to be like doing some sort of man-in-the-middle attack on my server and they steal credit card information, I'm not liable for that. And I strongly suggest that you guys do the same thing. Do not store things that are sensitive on your databases or your client's database, you will be making a horrible mistake if you do so. All right, so instead what we can do is just store the last 4 digits of their card, so we can tell them that they used a Visa and the last 4 digits are this, and that helps them identify and just verify what they've used to purchase with. Okay, so we will store that information so we can display it back to the user, but we will not be storing or sending the entire credit card information to our server, if that makes any sense to you guys. All right, the next thing that we want to do, we're going to go ahead and add another column here. Sorry for the tangents. I know writing this database migration is probably the least fun thing we're doing tonight. Trust me, this is going to be really cool. Live stream. I'm really excited. But the name, we are going to store the name here, and the name is going to be the name of the customer, so that we can ship it. We can include that in shipping information. So we're going to store that, and we're just going to put it at 255 characters. And actually, I'm just going to go ahead and copy this line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. And we will do shipping address 1. Shipping address 2, and then we'll do shipping city, shipping state, shipping zip, and lastly we will do shipping country. Now we don't need, these are going to be country codes and stuff, so we don't need 255 characters. We'll just do 15. For zip code, I'm not sure about all the postal codes and throughout the world. We use 5 digits here, so 55 seems like it's going to be adequate. For state, I'll do 155, although we're probably just going to store a 2 or 3 characters for that. Okay, city, you probably can get by with 155 as well. I don't think there are any cities that are 255 characters long. That'd be an extremely long city name. It'd wear your hand out writing that down on an envelope anyway. JJ said we should use a varchar in the last 4 instead of an int. We could do that. There are ways around, if you're worried about it starting with the 0 and stuff like that, there are ways around making sure it's formatted in exactly 4 characters, so that it would have the leading 0. So it's not really a big deal in this case, but if you would feel more comfortable, I will change that for you. And we're just going to make that 4 characters. Okay. We need just a couple more things and we are going to be done with this table. One thing was we want to make these things soft deleted. So we're just going to do this, add soft delete. And we just pass the table in, so that's super easy. The next thing we want to do is just add a couple indexes here. And the 2 indexes that I think we'll start with in this is going to be, let's see, table, and then we're going to add cart ID, okay? And then we'll add one more. I may refactor my add index. I wanted to make it easy and it just creates the index with the name and then the column. But sometimes it's really helpful to create indexes with multiple columns. And so I may refactor this in the near future in the framework itself. Okay, so that's it. So again, we're just adding a new table. We're basically getting some basic credit card information, some success. We're going to get some information about the credit card, but not store the credit card. And then the rest of it's all shipping information, and then a deleted column. Okay? So what we're going to do is go ahead and run this migration to create this table in our database. So in order to do that, I'm currently right now on XAMPP, and I cannot SSH into it reliably and without a headache. And so what I'm going to do is just run it from the browser. I do recommend that you guys do this on your live servers and things like that, just through SSH. Do not set it up to run through the browser. But in this case, what we can do in order to run it through the browser is just comment out line 2 on this run migration script, and it will skip this check at the top that makes sure that it is being run from a CLI, which is a command line interface. Most of the time you want these things running, it's the safest to run it through a command line interface. But again, I can't SSH into my XAMPP, so we're just going to do it from the browser. All right, so in order to do that, it's super easy. I'm just going to go to the browser, and I'm going to navigate directly to run migrations, and I need to do the file extension as well so that my framework doesn't try to find a controller. We'll just hit enter. It may take a little bit here to run this migration, and it could be broken, looks like. Success. All right, cool. I don't see any failures here. This doesn't look great, this output, and that's because it's not really meant to be output to the browser. It's actually meant to be output in a command line interface, and it is formatted a lot nicer there. It usually has a green color for success and a red color for failure. That's what this little bit here is that you're seeing. And it usually has a line break as well. But at any rate, it looks like that worked out. So the next thing I want to do is I don't want to forget to uncomment that line. So I'm going to go back to my migration script here and just uncomment that line so that nothing goofy can happen on my live server. And I will go ahead and close that. Now that my migration's done, let's just go ahead and check the database and make sure it all went well. Let me get out of here. By the way, if I just try to run migrations again from here, you can see that because I uncommented that line, it says that it's restricted. So it actually won't run migrations from the browser with that line enabled. Okay, so the next thing I want to do here, let's just go back to the home page and let's look in the database, refresh here. So if you look at transactions, we go to structure, you can see our structure here as we expected, and also we have our key, our indexes down here, and our primary key. So plus I didn't really show you guys this, but deleted, the soft deleted is it also adds the index for deleted as well, and that's important because all of our find functions actually automatically add a where clause to check like a condition to check that deleted is equal to 0. Okay, now that we've done that, the next thing that we are going to want to do here is create our model for our new table. So every time you add a table to your database, you'll need in the framework a corresponding model for that. Okay, so what we're going to do is just go to app, models, and we're going to create a new file here, and we're going to call this transactions. It's called the same thing as the database table, so transactions.php. All right, and then what we'll do here is open up our PHP tags, and then immediately we're going to give it a namespace. That has to happen first, and this namespace is just going to be app models. Okay. The next thing I want to do is we need to import the classes that we're using here. So I'm going to go ahead and use core, and then I'm going to do a group here because we may add something to this later. So for now, it's just one thing. So we're importing core model. The other thing we're going to need in this model is we're going to do some validation, and it's just going to be very basic validation. So that we're just going to use the required validator. So to include that, I'm just going to use core validators, and then we're going to include the required validator, and this is going to be for our shipping address. You'll see that as we go. So there we go. So that's all we need to include. So let's go ahead and declare a class here. So transactions, and this transactions class is going to extend the model class, okay? And that is what we included right here. So this is going to be a child class of model. Okay, the next thing that we need to do here is the when you create a model, you need to tell it what table it belongs to and whether or not you're using soft delete. And so to do that, you just add a protected static variable, and I always put mine, I start with underscores when they're protected or private. That's just a good standard. And the name of this table is transactions. So exactly how it is in the database is what you need to put there. The next thing you do is we're going to be using soft delete. So we'll add another protected static property here called soft delete. Okay, and we'll just set that to true. The next thing we want to do is we need to give for every column in our database, we need to create a public property for that. Okay, so we can do a lot of those in line. So we'll start off with just start listing them out. So it's ID. These are all the columns that this table is going to have, and they're all going to be set to null. Well, not all of them to null, but the ones that are just null, you can just declare them like this, and you can do a comma separated list like this, and we'll just keep going here. Type, amount, and then what we're going to do for success is we're going to give it a default. So success will equal 0. I'm going to go ahead and start another line here just so it doesn't get too long. This has more columns than most of the tables we've created so far. But we got charge ID, we had reason, then we had card brand, last four, then we had name, shipping address 1, and we'll do one more on this line, shipping address 2. One more line here. We had shipping city. So hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. I'm just adding public properties for every column that's in our database. And you only have to do this one time when you're setting it up, the model. So we had city, state, zip, and then we had shipping country, and then last but not least, we had deleted. Now deleted, we want to set a default to that of 0, so that we don't have to define that anywhere else. Yo says, thank you very much, best tutorial. Yeah, you're very welcome. You've been leaving me lots of nice comments throughout the entire week, so thank you very much for watching and commenting. You guys will be surprised how much just leaving me a comment or a like helps on videos with YouTube. And it helps other people find it, which is important. So the next thing we want to do is we want to make sure that every time a row gets saved, we want to update or add the timestamps. So in order to do that, there is a hook inside of our model called before save. So we're just going to use the before save method. Now this gets called every time the save method calls. Whether it's being inserted or it's being updated, it will update these timestamps accordingly. So all we need to do there is just run timestamps. That's it. So that will happen in the before save. Now this, for tonight, we only need one more method in this model. And this is going to validate in our forms. We're going to create our shipping address. We'll every time let me start over. We need to validate that people actually put something in a shipping address, because if they purchase something from us that we need to physically mail them, we need to make sure that there is a shipping address stored. And so what we're going to do here is create a a method. Now usually you'd use this validator. If you use validator like that, that happens every time it saves, but that's not what I want to happen. I want to be able to add rows to this without going through that validation. So what I'm going to do is create a new one called validate shipping. You'll see that we'll use this later, but all we need to do here is add our validation now. So it's going to be exactly the same if you've seen other forms being validated. We're going to do the exact same process, except for it's not going to get run automatically. We're going to be responsible for running this validate shipping, which is not going to be a problem because we're going to do that in our gateway classes later. So here we go. We want to run validation. So that's the method we're going to run here. And the thing that gets passed in here is the class that we're running. And in our case, we're going to create a new required validator. And that takes two parameters. We're going to pass in the model object. So in this scope, the scope that we're in right now is this. If you were not in this scope, you could pass in the model from anywhere else, like if you were in a controller. But in this scope, it will be this. And then the next thing it gets is just an array, and you need to tell it what field that you're validating, and then you need to give it a message that it displays back to the user if that validation fails. So in our case, it's just going to be name is required. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and copy this. I'll go ahead and copy this 1, 2, 3, 4 more times, and just update shipping address. Then we'll just say address is required, and then we'll do shipping city. I don't know why my editor is adding that little, I guess because I'm selecting the variable from this drop down. But anyway, shipping state, still easier to remove that $sign than it is to type all that out. So here we'll just say state required. And then finally, shipping zip. Okay. And then here I'm just going to say zip code is required. I know in some of your countries that's called postal code, not zip code, so feel free to change that messaging out however you see fit. That is it for our model. Okay guys, so you've seen up to this point, you've seen this before in previous videos where we've created the database migration to add to a database, and then we've created a model for that table. So now from here on out it's a little bit all new stuff, and I'm really excited to jump right in. So let me take a drink here and we will get going. Let me go ahead and close some of this reference material. So actually kind of conflicted where to start here, because I'd like to get into the actual gateway stuff, but we need, it's kind of a chicken versus the egg thing. We need a little bit of the controllers and things like that to go along with this, and then we need a little bit of the, well, you know what, let's just jump in. Let's do the hard stuff first and do the back end, and then we'll come back and add the front end stuff and see if it works. And then we may have some bugs or something to squash, but I think it'll work fine like this. And I'll try to do my best to explain it, but I think it'll all come together once we do the front end and the back end. All right. So what we'll do is in our let's see, in our application here, we don't want to do this in core or anything like that, but in our application we have this directory called lib, and we're going to utilize that. So I'm going to add a new directory inside that lib there, and we're going to create a new directory called gateways. And this is where we're going to store all of our custom, what did I do? Dang it. Sorry guys, I never use this editor or this keyboard, so I click on the wrong things a lot. So here we create a new directory and it's going to be called gateways. Now gateways is going to store, what? I did it again? You guys should reach through the comment line and slap me. I did it twice in a row. Gateways. Alright. Third time's a charm, I guess. So in gateways, this is where we're going to create all of our classes to handle our different gateways that we can interact with, or that we can use in our application. So tonight there will be one, but we're going to continue to grow that as we get going. Now inside of gateways, we're going to need a few different files to start off with. We need a factory file, and we'll explain that more when we get to it, but I'm just going to call that gateway.php. This is going to be a class that builds out, based upon what we've chosen to do, it will build out our gateway. No, I didn't put it in controllers. It's inside this lib directory here. So oh, you're right, I did. Wow. I need to slow down. I'm just so excited to get going on this. All right, so gateways, we got gateway.php. The next thing we're going to need is we need a parent class that all of these gateways are going to implement. However, we don't want to just use a parent class. We're going to use an abstract class, and the abstract class will allow us to do some work inside the parent, but it'll also allow us to just say, hey, every gateway that you add has to have these methods implemented, and then it'll give us an exception, or it will kill the application and give us an error message if we forget those. So that protects us in the future when we're adding new ones. So inside gateways, and I'm just going to call this abstract gateway. Now all of our gateways that we build will actually extend this. Okay, so abstract gateway. And then we're going to need, tonight we're doing Stripe, so we're going to do Stripe Gateway. Okay, those are the three files that we'll need inside of our lib directory tonight. So let's get going on those. So the first and easiest one is going to be this gateway. Now this is going to be basically, there's a couple ways to do this, but essentially what we're going to use this for is a factory to build out the correct class, okay, depending on what our config file says. So let me jump in to the config and show you what I mean really quick, because we need to have this available to us in order for this to work. So go to config, and open up config.php, and what we want to do down here is I'm just going to put some comments here, and I'm just going to say gateway settings or something like that, so that I can kind of just easily kind of start segmenting my config file a little bit. And then what we're going to do for now is add we want to add a new constant, and this constant will just be gateway. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to be using Stripe, so I'm putting Stripe there, but I'm going to go ahead and leave myself a comment here that we could use Stripe or PayPal as a value here. Now the goal here is for us to only update this one value, and then our entire application just work with whatever gateway we've chosen. Okay, so that's kind of the power in the way that we're constructing this. We want it to be like that. Okay, so this right here is what we're going to use inside of our factory to build out the correct gateway class. All right, and like I said, you guys might see this and wish I would have done it differently, and there's a lot of different ways to do this, but I'm going for simplicity here so that you guys can see basically how this works, and you can get going with it right away. So then I'm going to go ahead and give it a namespace. This is going to live in app. Whoa. App lib gateways. All right, and then we need to use app lib gateways, and then stripe gateway. Now later we'll add to this grouping, and we'll have PayPal gateway and all the ones that we're going to use. And then we'll just go ahead and declare this class. So it was called gateway. This doesn't extend anything, so it's a really simple class. The one thing that we want to do here is create just one single method, and this is going to be a static method, so you don't even have to instantiate this class. So it's a public static function, and we're going to call this that method or function build. Okay, and that's going to accept one parameter, and it will accept the cart ID. Okay, awesome. So now that we have that, what we want to do is actually instantiate the correct class based upon what they have in their config file. So that's super easy to do. So all we need to do here is a basic if statement. So we're going to say if gateway is equal to stripe. Then what we want to do is return a new stripe gateway, and we'll pass down the cart ID to that on instantiation. So that'll have a constructor inside of it once we get to it, and it will go ahead and pull in all of our items and everything like that on construct, so that we have access to that at any time. All right, so that is our factory. Now you can imagine as you just add gateways to this, all you have to do is add an else if gateway. Oops. So this is how this would look. Else if gateway is equal to PayPal, then you would return, a new PayPal gateway, and you would pass the cart ID down to that. Now the idea is that you have to keep these consistent, so whatever I pass down to each one of these, they're all going to expect this cart ID. Okay, so when we build these classes out, you have to keep that in mind. And then through our abstract class, what we're going to do is ensure that the other methods are all implemented and are the same method names. And you'll see why this is important as we build this. So if you're a little lost now, leave me a comment in the comment section. But if not, we're going to continue on, and I will. And if you're just a little bit lost, maybe hopefully it'll come together after we start using it and implementing it. If it doesn't, please, by all means, stop me, because if you have a question, chances are someone else will have the question, either that are here on the live stream or that will be in the future watching this, and they'll greatly appreciate you raising your hand and saying, hey, I have a question. So don't feel dumb to ask questions, guys. That's why I'm here, and that's frankly why we do this live instead of me just recording these videos, is so that I can answer your questions live. Okay? All right, so now we have our gateway factory, and I'm just calling it a factory because what we're going to do is when we use this, like say in our controllers, all we're going to do is call this gateway build, and it's going to return the correct class for the gateway that we want to use. That's in our config file here. So when we change this gateway is responsible for giving us the correct object back. Okay? So if that makes sense, the next thing we want to do, I think, is let's go ahead and jump into the abstract gateway first. I'm going to open that file up. And the abstract gateway, I want you to think of it like this. The abstract gateway is just a parent class that we can extend to build all of our child classes from. The exception to this is that it's going to also allow us to just define empty methods and their parameter signatures and say, hey, you have to have these. If you extend me, you have to have these. And so it's just a way of protecting us in the future and also helping us remember to implement methods. This is the reason that we can define something in one spot in our code, and then no matter how many other places our code uses it, we can expect it to just work. And it's only because of this abstract implementation of a parent class. Okay, I hope that makes sense. If that doesn't make sense, let me know, because that's something that you need to understand going forward. All right, so what we're going to do here is give it a namespace, and the namespace again is just going to be app lib gateways, and then this is going to we need to use our cart model here, so we're just going to use app models, and then here we'll just say carts. All right, next thing we want to do is go ahead and declare our class. So you just declare it like normal. We're going to call it the same thing, abstract gateway. All right, now I'm gonna drink. Man, my mouth is really dry. I need to drink more water instead of these like carbonated water things. Which, for those who've been following my health stuff, I haven't had any caffeine since like February or whenever I got sick. So I've given up like caffeinated coffee and soda and energy drinks and all that. I'm still just drinking water. But I get really tired of water because I'm spoiled and I like other flavors sometimes. So I've been buying these things and now I'm kind of addicted to them. But I don't feel like they hydrate me as well as water does. I think they kind of dehydrate me. They have like a fake sugar in it probably. Probably gonna get cancer from it. Anyhow. Alright, so the next thing that we want to do here in this abstract gateway is we want to go ahead and create a constructor that will load our cart ID, because remember we pass in our cart ID. Now this is going to be the same. The reason I'm going to go ahead and do this in the abstract instead of in each individual gateway is because this part of it is going to be the same process regardless of the gateway that we use, because we're going to want our items listed out regardless of what gateway we're in, and we're going to want like certain things like our totals, our shipping totals, item counts, all of that. We want to be able to have access to that without having to write that logic over and over again. Remember, the DIY or the dry, sorry, the DRY, the dry method of programming is DRI is an acronym for do not repeat yourself, or don't repeat yourself. Okay, so so don't repeat yourself, meaning this is going to help you avoid bugs to have your code in one place. Okay, so that's a little bit why we're doing it the way that we're doing it. But here we go. So this is I think the easiest thing to do is just go ahead and get some of these properties knocked out. So we need a cart ID. We're going to create items. We'll do item count, and we'll set this a default here. Just set it to 0. I want to do a subtotal. That's going to be also defaulted to 0. We'll do a shipping total. You guessed it, 0. And then we're going to have a grand total. That will be 0 as well. I'll do a few more here. I want to do just kind of a boolean called charge success, and we'll set that to false by default. And then I want to also set one more property, and this is the last one for now. It's just going to be message to user. Now you remember when I told you that sometimes credit card may fail, and it may fail because they entered the wrong PIN or any number of reasons, but we'll get a message back from the credit card issuer with that kind of a pretty message that we can display, like an error message that we can display back to the user of why their card may have failed. And so that's what we're going to put there. All right. The next thing we want to do is go ahead and create the constructor. So PHP has the magic construct method. Now that is 2 underscores here instead of 1. So make sure you have 2. And remember it took the cart ID. Okay, that's what we're passing it down to this. So what we need to do first is we're just going to go ahead and set this cart ID equal to cart ID. And then we want to set the items. So this items is going to equal. Now remember, inside of our cart model, our carts model, we had this static function called find all items by cart ID. So I want to use that to grab every item that's in that cart. Okay, they're going to check out with. Okay, so this items. I hope I'm not losing you guys. Stop me if I am. So this items equals carts, and then find all items by cart ID. So we'll just pass in cart ID, and that will set all the items inside the class to a property called items. Then what we're going to do is we're actually just going to loop through those items to build out our totals. Okay, so we can say for each this items as item, and we'll say this, fat fingers keep hitting multiple keys, this item count. So we're going to increment item count, and that would be plus equal item quantity. Okay, so basically we're looping through all the items, and however many are in the item quantity in the database is going to add that to a total item count. Okay, so that we can have an accurate item count, counting all their quantities, not just the items in the cart. All right, the next thing that we want to increment is the subtotal, and that will just be now we're going to do a little bit of multiplication here. So what we want to do is we want to say item price multiplied by the item quantity, and that will add to the subtotal. The last thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that we get our shipping added in. So we're going to say this shipping total is incremented by the item shipping times item quantity. All right, so that's it in the for each loop. The last thing we want to do is go ahead and update our grand total. So our grand total is really simple. Just grand total is going to be equal to this subtotal added to this shipping total. All right, so that's our entire constructor. So that's going to happen regardless of what gateway we use. It's going to build out our items and our total and all of that. Okay. Denise asks, Stripe is just for credit cards, or can you also use other systems like mobile money for payment? Yeah, they have all kinds of stuff. So you can accept credit cards, you can accept Apple Pay, all the different type things are available, I think, through Stripe. The only thing about Stripe is just make sure it's available in your country. But again, you might have missed this disclaimer earlier. We're going to do several gateways, so even if Stripe doesn't work in your country, go ahead and code this out, because they add countries all the time. Almost weekly they add a new country that's available in, and so once it becomes available in your country, you can just turn it on and use it. The other thing is it's not really that important to know how to integrate with any specific gateway, rather that you understand how to integrate with any gateway. So regardless of what gateway you choose to interact with, as long as you know how to interact with an API, you can do this just going through the principles. So even if it's not available in your country, please follow along. Trust me, it's going to help you with integrating with other things, because they're all really, really similar. They might have different things you pass along or whatever, and they return data in a different way, but they're pretty much all going to be similar. And once you get a handle on how to do it, you'll be able to integrate with any gateway that you want. But yes, they do integrate with other things. We'll get into their documentation and stuff a little later when we start implementing Stripe, which we're going to do very, very shortly here. All right, so now that we have that, let's see. We need to add a few abstract methods here. And in order to do that, remember when we declared this class, we just declared it as a regular class. We need to go ahead and declare this as an abstract class. So I'm going to add the keyword abstract right here before class. And then down here, what we're going to do is we're just going to say abstract public function. Now this is just going to tell us that any child class that we extend this with is going to have these methods implemented in some way. Okay, they either have to exist in a parent or whatever, but they have to exist on every object that extends this parent. So what we're going to do, we're going to have one called a getView. And when you do an abstract function, you don't give it a body. You just give it the parameter signature. So in this case, we're not passing any parameters to the getView one. So I'm just going to list out a few of these that we're going to need. And these may change later, we'll see. But for now, process form, and that's going to take one parameter called post. We add another function here called charge. This will actually do the charge, and then it's going to take a parameter called data. Another abstract function we'll call handle charge response. Now this is what comes back from the API. So we're just going to pass in charge to that. And then one more, we're going to have create transaction. And that will also take the charge object. All right, so that is our abstract class. That's all we're going to need, and we'll come back to this because you'll see why we added these once we start using them. So the next thing that we need to do is we actually want to get, in order to use Stripe, we could make direct API calls using curl, but they were nice enough to give us something called an SDK, which is basically a PHP library or some PHP scripts that are they're object-oriented scripts, and they're just files basically. We're going to include those, and then we can use their methods to integrate with their API. So there's no room for errors or whatever. They've already figured all that out, and it's going to be the least error-prone way to interact with their API. And so that we're going to go ahead and do that. If there's ever a case when there's not an SDK, you can just build your own basically by creating a class, and then you would make your HTTP request or post or whatever. You would make those using curl most of the time from the back end, which isn't super difficult. But if they wrote that stuff for us, we can just implement those, and that's what we're going to do. So let's go ahead now and let's go and jump right into Stripe. And I'm going to open up a new tab with the developers stuff here. That's actually not where I wanted to go, so hang on one second. I'm going to just type Stripe docs. All right. I'm going to search these docs for PHP SDK. Hang on. If I remember right, their documentation was a little hard to find stuff. It's almost easier to go through Google and find their stuff through there. So we're looking for Stripe PHP SDK. All right, so they have it in their libraries. All right. So you can see up here they have their API libraries, and this is what I'm talking about with the SDKs. And they have it available for a few different languages here. So we're just going to choose our PHP, and then they give instructions on how to install their SDK. Most of the time you're going to find they either have a direct download, so you can download it and just include it, or you can use Composer. So we're going to go ahead and use Composer because we've already installed that in a previous video. So if you look, let's go to our right here. So Composer, we have the Composer JSON file here. So we've already installed Composer. Now all we need to do is actually run this little bit here to require it. So I'm going to copy this and then paste it. See if that works. Okay. So on my Linux machine, this hasn't been installed yet, so it just tells me sudo apt install Composer. So I'm going to do that real quick. If you're on Windows or anything like that, if you go to Composer, if you just Google Composer, there are installation instructions for Composer for Windows, Mac, and Linux. So basically, Composer, while this is installed, I'll just tell you if you're not certain what Composer is, it's a package manager. It's essentially like if you've ever used anything with JavaScript, like NPM, so Node package manager, or Yarn or something like that. It's exactly the same thing. In Ruby, it's gems and stuff like that, or bundle or whatever. So let me clear that out now. And so now let me try to run that one more time. So Composer require, and all right, let me try one more thing here. Didn't have this problem. I did all my reference stuff on my Mac, so Composer far. Oh goodness. All right. Oh, let's see. It's like I'm missing quite a bit of can't believe it doesn't have all this stuff. That sucks. Let me try one last thing real quick. Here, PHP 7.2. Sorry guys, just bear with me for a second. If we don't get this quickly, I might just install this manually. But this shouldn't be an issue for you guys. I think this probably wasn't an issue for me, except for right before the video. Of course, I updated, and it looks like it updated to PHP 7.2 and didn't include a lot of the dependencies that I need here, and that's what my problem is. Not a big deal. So let me just try to find. Actually. I knew we were gonna hit a snag, at least one, because it would go a little too smooth. All right. Let's see here if there's a single package. What's up, Sean? So we're working on payment gateway now, and I'm trying to install something in Composer, which I've done in previous videos, so I'm not sure why. I think it's just because it updated the PHP 7.2 here. So let me see. All right, well, I don't want you guys to have to watch me fix my CLI installation, which I'm not sure why it's not working. One other thing I want to try real quick to see if this works is just running this as super user and see if it fixes it. It most likely won't. Okay. So they don't even let me do it. Alrighty then. So what we'll do, in lieu of you guys watching me try to deal with this, is for now, what we'll do is we're gonna go ahead and install this thing manually. So they have, I do recommend using Composer, by the way, and that's what I've done in other, on other installations. But since I don't want you guys to have to watch me do that, you can download the source directly here. All right, so let's go ahead and grab that. 6.33. Go ahead and show that real quick. Okay. Oops. Let me extract this. I just want to double check that they have everything in here we're gonna need. Yeah. Okay. This is gonna be fine. All right. So what I'm gonna do now is just take this and I'm going to try. Let's see. All right. So I'm gonna just add this manually real quick to my. Probably won't work. File system. This goes into. I end up in user. I need opt lamp, and then htdocs. Where you at? Where you at? And then we're in live. But what I want to do here is I'm going to click on this and open as root. This is just some Linux stupidness that I have to do here. And then I'm going to copy this here. And for now, I think what I'll do, I don't really want to put it in my vendor folder because, I don't know, maybe we'll try that. Let's drop it in the vendor folder here. And then, yeah. It probably won't work. But, alright, so now what we've done is we've added that here. We'll get to including that if it works or whatever. So if I look now in my vendor directly, this, if I would have added it through Composer, it would have come here anyway. But where are my files at? Come on now. You serious? Oh, the joys of being a developer sometimes, huh? Just want to get on to the cool stuff, but you're struggling with other crap. Agi says, hi Curtis, you finished the last e-commerce series years ago. I'm going to go in and this one looks more complex. Can I upgrade the last one or need to restart? You're probably going to need to restart, although you could probably convert it pretty easily. But honestly, this is going to be a lot better code than anything I did back in 2015 when I uploaded those. So I personally wouldn't use the code from that original series. I'd like to replace that. I was a really new developer when I created that. So Sean says, is Stripe easier than PayPal Sandbox? I don't know. Easier is kind of relative. I don't know how to answer that. They're probably both about the same, except Stripe I've used. I don't know. I've used them both, so to me they're about the same. They're a little different, but not much. I mean, you basically get the SDK, which we're struggling with right now. Once we get that, I don't know why I didn't copy those files, so whatever. What we're gonna do is I'm gonna probably use command line to do this just to make it work. Need to delete. I don't know. Let me get out of root. Maybe that was my problem. Sorry guys. Hang tight with me. Downloads. All right, let me check and see if I can access to that now. Okay. I think my problem is I did open it in root and I didn't need to do that because it messed up my permissions. All right, so we have Stripe here. The one thing that we want to do, and I don't know if this is going to work out of the box, but we want to try to use this auto load here. And you guys, Composer is going to work for you. My box is just screwed up right now, and I don't want to take the time to fix it. But to make all the stuff within Composer work, we need to use this autoloader in addition to our autoloader. So it's super easy to do. All we have to do is open up our index.php file. And what we're going to do is we're going to require once, and then we want to require vendor, and then autoload.php. All right. Let's see if we have any errors there. All right. Looks good. We're not going to know quite yet if this works yet. Let me see how they have. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and close index. Now that we have, let's just get going and we'll just see if this breaks or not. Here we go. Let's jump over now and build out. Let's just get started on our, I think the easiest thing to do at this point is get started on our checkout process. So what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna go to app controllers cart, and we're going to add some new actions here in order for us to check out. Okay, we're we're going to have two new actions. We're going to start with the hardest one first, actually. And this will get a little crazy, but not too bad. Just hang with me, okay? If you have any questions, we'll slow down. So we're going to create a checkout action. And this checkout action is actually going to take a cart ID passed in through the URL. Now, the checkout action, the first thing we want to do is we're going to build out our gateway. Okay, so the gateway, I'm just going to set it to a variable called GW. So this gateway is going to equal, now remember earlier when I told you we're going to use that gateway controller that object that we built earlier as a factory. Well, let's go ahead and include that up at the top here. So use app lib gateways, and then what we want to use here is just gateway. Okay, now we have access to that. Down here, what we're going to do is we're going to just use gateway, and then remember we only had one method in there, and that was called build. All right, so let's see. All right, so then what we're going to pass here is we're going to pass down the cart ID. Now remember, this is coming from the URL, so the one thing I want to do is go ahead and cast that to an integer, but we're going to pass down cart ID directly into the gateway. The gateway is going to attempt to build everything out, and then it's going to get all the items. And so what I want to do actually is to show you that. Let's go ahead and do our helper file, and let's just do a dump and die here, and we're going to go ahead and just go ahead and display that object on the screen so that we can actually see what's going on here. So the one thing we want to do now is if we go to our cart, so if I just click here and I go to cart, it loads our shopping cart. Well, this link right here, I'm not sure that I actually connected this. Let me, okay, so that's a button. We need to fix this link to take us to the cart checkout, okay? That's going to be super easy to do. It's one line of code, but what we want to do is go back to our views, and we're going to go to cart, and then we are going to look at the index, and then we're going to look for that button. So that button was proceed with checkout here. Now this actually shouldn't be a button. We actually want to go ahead and change this to just a link, because we want to redirect. And then the href for this is going to, we're just going to go ahead and echo out our project root, and then we're going to take them to cart, and then remember we're taking them to checkout. We're going to go to the checkout action, and we're going to actually include onto the end of that as a parameter the item ID. Okay, so remember we are within not item ID, I'm sorry, we're going to, let's see, do we have cart ID anywhere yet? We might actually have to pass this down from the controller, so let's check that out. So let's see, this cart ID. Okay, let's just make sure we have that. So we'll go to cart controller, and we're in the index action, and we do not have that. So let's go ahead and pass that down to the view so they can use that. So we're just going to say this view, and remember we just called it cart. I'm going to change it to just snake K's there, cart ID, and we're going to set that equal to cart ID. Now our view, our view makes that, just passes that down. I got a syntax error there. Sean, this is not CodeIgniter. This framework is actually the framework that we built together on my YouTube channel, Rua, and so actually that's the framework we use. But yeah, it's it's our there. Everyone was kind of asking for different frameworks to use on this, and we had just built one, so just we're using our own, and it's going really well, and it's allowing me to improve the framework as we go and find bugs. So that's why we did it that way. William says we should add the cart shortcut to our navigation bar. It will be easier to navigate. Absolutely, that we are absolutely 100% going to do that. So don't worry about that. There will be in the menu basically a little shopping cart icon up here with a number indicator of how many items are there, and you just click on it and it takes you right to the shopping cart. But regardless of that, we needed to pass this down into our view so that our link could use it, because this is a different link than going to the shopping cart. So we're in the shopping cart now, but now we have a link here, and if I go to proceed with checkout, it takes us here, and we have a problem. So it can't find app lib gateways, so let's go find out why. And I think I know why already, but let's go back to our cart controller here, and remember we're working on the checkout action, so it's gateway, gateways. So let's open that up and check the namespace. App lib gateways. Okay. And it's because I'm missing my E right there actually. So there's a typo there. Alright, so now we should be able to load gateway. Let's refresh now. What? Controllers. What did I do? I made some stupid mistake here. App lib gateways. That's correct. App lib gateways. And then app lib gateways gateway. And I missed my E here as well. Okay. Nothing to see here. Oh my gosh. Okay. No, this is good. So now it's telling us that we can't find the Stripe gateway. Okay. So that's probably a real similar issue where I've spelled something incorrect. So go in here, we have app lib gateways Stripe gateway, and actually what's happening is we haven't even declared this yet. So it's this right here is actually trying to instantiate a class, this Stripe gateway, and it can't find it because we haven't done anything with it here. So just to get this working quickly, let's just go ahead and add a namespace, and this will be app lib gateways, and then this is going to use app lib gateways Stripe, or I'm sorry, abstract gateway. And then all we have to do is declare this class. So we're just going to say class Stripe gateway, and it extends our abstract gateway. Okay. Now we're going to have another error, but I want to show you this error because this is important. Let's see. Gateways, Stripe gateway. I don't know if my E key is just like sticking and not working, but I am just missing those E's like crazy. Okay, this is the error that I really wanted to show you guys. Yeah, Gary, wish I had other people spotting typos as well. Yeah, it is interesting, and I tend to make a little more typos on these live streams because I'm talking and trying to type something else, and It's just, my brain's just not sophisticated enough for all that. It's like trying to walk and chew gum at the same time or something. I can't do it. So now this is what I did want to show you. I wanted to show you guys this, and this is because we have that abstract. We were extending that abstract. Remember when I told you that that's going to ensure that we have all of the methods? So it tells us right here that we have a fatal error, and it's because our Stripe gateway contains 5 abstract methods and they have to be implemented. So let's go and look at what those were. Remember when we set up the abstract gateway and we set all these right here? These are the 5 methods that it's requiring us to have. So what I'm going to do, just to make this easy on myself, I'm going to copy those from there. I'm going to go back in here to this Stripe gateway, and I'm just going to paste them. And I'm going to get rid of abstract in all of these cases. So let's see. Okay. And then the next thing I want to do is I'm actually going to get rid of all of these. And whoa. Okay. So that's not, you know, none of this actually works yet, obviously, because they're empty methods, but we have them there. And now when we refresh, we don't have any more errors. And now we are back to our controller. Everything is loaded in now, and it is loading our Stripe gateway. If you look right here, it's loading an object. And what object is it loading? It's loading the Stripe gateway object. Now remember, the Stripe gateway object had the cart ID, which is 1, and it had the items. So there's 4 items in this cart. Okay, so each one of those is an object that has a quantity and everything like that. And if we scroll down here, we have item count is 4. The subtotal, it has the subtotal, the shipping total, and then it has the grand total. Okay, so this is all correct. This is exactly what we expected and what we wanted here. So let's go ahead now and carry on with our Stripe gateway, and at the same time we're going to go ahead and build out, well, not at the same time, but kind of back and forth, we're going to build out our checkout process along with building out our gateway. Okay, so in order for this to work, let me pull up my reference here real quick. So we're doing pretty good on time. We got about an hour and a half left. I do think we'll get this done. Okay, so I've gone ahead and pulled up everything here. The first thing that we're going to want to do, I think what would be wise for us to do is go ahead and get okay, let me explain a little something. This is kind of the disappointing part. It's not really disappointing, but because of the way these gateways work, and remember when I told you because of PCI compliance, we couldn't ever send the credit card information to our servers. We have to send them directly from the client's browser through HTTPS, like a SSL certified certificate encrypted connection. We have to send that credit card information from the client directly to our payment gateway. It can't touch our servers. If it does, we're responsible for everything. We're responsible for any fraud or any theft or anything like that that happens. And so in order to do that, since we want to handle separate gateways, we're going to have a slightly different front-end form for each one. For example, PayPal will have like a PayPal link that kind of redirects you and fills everything out and then sends you back. Stripe, what they do is they use a JavaScript deal that will basically turn one of your inputs into a card input, and when you submit your form, there's a bit of JavaScript code that stops that submit process, submits it directly to them, and then they send back a token, and then you take that token and finish filling out your form with it at that point. So I know that may be a little confusing at this point, but I needed to explain why we're about to do the thing we're about to do, because you might think that this is really dumb, but this is going to be imperative as we move forward in order to do this. So let's start off with and make this as easy as I possibly can, as stripped down as I can. We're going to, in our views, let's see, cart. Let's see. I'm sorry, I'm just looking at my reference here so I don't mess anything up. All right. So what we're going to do is inside of our views, let's create a new folder, and we're going to call that card forms. And this is where we're going to have all of our different forms for each different gateway, okay, if we need to. So we're going to create a new file in here, and the first one we're going to create is just stripe.php. Okay, so that we have our card form stripe.php. Then the other thing we're going to need is a shipping address, and we're going to add that directly excuse me, we're going to add that directly into our cart directory here. So that will be cart. So we'll add a new file here, and this is going to be the same for all of them, hopefully, unless something crazy happens as we start implementing. But this will be shipping address form.php. Okay, so that we got two new views, the stripe.php and the shipping address form.php. All right, so the first thing that we want to do is I actually don't really care about the shipping address at this moment, because I want to show you guys just basically how to get Stripe working first, and then we'll improve the user experience. Okay, so we're just going to work with stripe.php. Now we want our gateways, our gateway objects, to tell our front end which one to use, so that we don't have to load all kinds of craziness, right? So what we're going to do is we're actually going to create this get view right here. So I'm going to just give it a little bit of space so you guys see it. So get view is going to be super basic and simple, but this is just going to return our view. Okay, so that lived in card forms, and then / dot, and then this one was stripe. And actually we don't even need this anymore. So it's just return card forms / stripe. Now, how are we going to use that? Well, in our cart controller, we're going to actually, at the bottom here, I'm going to get rid of this dump and die. And down here, we're going to do this view render. And then instead of passing it in directly, we want to get it from our gateway. So we'll do gateway get view. Now, the reason I chose to do this first is because I think this is going to kind of explain a lot to you about how now everywhere in our application we use this factory to build it out, and then we're making sure that every one of those child gateways like Stripe or PayPal or whatever, they all have to implement this get view method. And this get view method is actually going to return a string so that it knows what view to render here. Okay, so we're not doing a bunch of if-else statements inside of our checkout. We're using a method that is on our gateway object that we built from our factory. So I hope that makes sense. All right, so the next thing that we want to do here, let's just check to make sure this is working. So I'm going to go here, and I'm just going to put hello here. I just want to double check that this works. So refresh here, and you can see right here that it did work. Okay, so the reason that it's up there though is because we didn't do the start and end thing, no big deal. I just wanted to make sure that I had everything hooked up correct and that our new method works. Okay, so I tend to test methods early so that I can find bugs early. There we go. So there we go. Let's go ahead and set site title on this, and we're gonna set this to checkout. All right. The next thing that we want to do is we're going to do this start body. I'm going to skip down a few lines. We'll do this end, and I forgot my closing PHP tags up here. All right, so everything that goes in here now will actually get inserted into our layout. So now if I put hello Stripe form here, you can it's this set site. I forgot to put this set site title. All right, there we go. So now you can see that this gets inserted into our actual layout now. So it's our menus where it is expected to be. And so now if we kind of just go back, you can see if we go to cart, our cart's loaded, we click proceed to checkout, and there we go, we are here. And now what we need to do is we're going to jump over to the Stripe documentation, and we're going to grab their stuff, okay? And it's going to be pretty straightforward. Let me grab my reference material here and open that up. 1 second. So views. Alrighty then. Okay, so this will grow a little bit, but what we're going to do is we are going to actually create a form here. And actually, what I'm going to do is just get rid of all of that, and I'm going to show you guys how I did this. So it's more important to learn how to figure something out than it is even to copy code, right? So let's go back now, and I'm just going to search for Stripe docs. And I'm going to go to development quick start here. This is exactly how I did this. It's telling us that we need our API keys. Okay, we'll get those. And then API I actually even want to go. So we hopefully got our API library. I guess we can, let's go ahead and do this whole thing here. Yeah. So let's get our API calls, our API keys. Now you should never show anybody these, so I'm showing you mine, but I'm going to change these after this video. Because if this were on a live thing and anybody could see these, don't ever put these in a public repository on GitHub or anything like that. You got to make sure what you're doing with your API keys, guys. You got to keep these things hidden and secret and all of that goodness. I'm showing this to you guys just to show you transparently how I did this and how I set this up. So now I have my two keys here, a public and a secret key. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back over to config.php, and what I'm going to do is define a couple new constants here. So this will be Stripe public, okay, and then we're going to define one more, and this one will be Stripe private. Okay. The next thing I want to do is we're just going to copy those and paste them. So I'm going to copy this secret one, and I'm going to paste it right here in private. Oops. Come on now. Why is it doing this to me? Jeez. My editor has gone dumb. That was the editor's fault, not mine. I don't know what was happening there. Usually it's my fault, so I'm not just passing blame here, but that was doing something really bizarre. Okay. So now we have my public and private keys. Again, guys, don't do anything weird with this. Do me a favor. But I'm going to change these after we get off the live stream so that you guys can't, do anything funky with my API keys. You'll just need to sign up for an account with Stripe. It's free. It doesn't cost any money. You sign up. It sets it on developer mode first. You don't even have to go through and you don't even have to test this. You don't even have to like verify bank accounts or that you own a business or anything like that. You just set up your development account here, and then it gives you these test API keys. See, it's even got the word test in it. Live ones will not have that. So it really doesn't matter. This is just a test account. So even if you guys steal these, it's not going to really hurt me because it won't mess with my live accounts. All right. So I'm going to go back home now, and let's go back to the documentation. So it told us to get those API keys, and then it's telling us to set up our to do a test run. This is a good idea because this will actually just tell us if everything's if our autoloader is working correctly. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to copy this, and let's go to our cart controller, and right here it's going to paste their code here. I'm going to get rid of this namespace here and just use Stripe and charge. We're just going to use charge here. Okay. Now, in order for that to work, I'm going to have to go ahead and add it up here. So I'm going to say use, and then hopefully this will work. Stripe. So then I have Stripe and charge. Okay. This may not work, admittedly, guys, because the way I did the composer stuff, it can be completely broke. So I might have to do some debugging after this. The one thing though is I need to set this API key here. So what we're going to do there is we use our constant. So Stripe underscore private. Okay. Let's save that. And let's see what happens. All right, Stripe not found. So where is that looking? Okay. So let me go back to my index.php here, not that one. This one. So vendor autoload. I'm gonna check my reference really quick here to see if I can figure out how to quickly fix this. Okay. So let me rename this to the Stripe. And then inside of here, they had a directory called stripe-php. And then all of this stuff was actually in that stripe.php. And actually this data and lib was as well. Oops. All right. Let's see if that works. vendor, Stripe. All right. One last thing, let me check something here. Oh, let me change this require here. This could be the problem. All right. Come on. Check one more thing. Stripe, charge. I really wish Composer was working tonight because this is not something I spent a bunch of time on before. All right. Yeah, I don't know. It's not really set in the auto load. I imagine what happens is when you, I don't know how Composer does it, but the problem is I probably shouldn't have just added it. I probably shouldn't have added it here because I didn't use it through Composer. Composer probably updates some files so it knows where this stuff lives, and that's probably what's wrong here. And so what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to take this, and this isn't what I want you guys to do, but I'm actually just going to take this and see if I can I'm actually going to move this because I know this will work. I think, anyways. Yeah, let's put it in app. Hopefully I'll get Composer working before the next video and we'll fix this. But for now, I don't want to spend a bunch of time on just auto-loading this stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to throw it in this lib directory here. I'll move that there. And then I need to try to figure out need to find their this probably won't work either. This is going to be super annoying, I bet. All right. Stupid Composer. This is bad news, guys. This is bad news. That's okay though. We'll figure it out. Let's see if I can figure out what this does. libstripe.php. Maybe I can change one place, possibly. What I don't want to do is have to change all these, but I don't want to do this, but here we go. App lib stripe Again, this is not something that you guys would ever have to do. I'm only having to deal with this crap because basically because the my stuff's broken. I don't even know if I can do this. Come on. Alright. I'm gonna hit the brakes for a second. I guess what I'm gonna have to do, guys, is see if I can get Composer working. I don't have, otherwise I'm gonna have to update every single file. This is gonna be a nightmare. So let's see. Composer PHP. Get started. All right. I just want to do this one line at a time. Okay. All right. You would just follow the instructions for whatever. All right. So now I should be able to run. Let me just try to use. All right. So it looks like hopefully that's working. All right. Composer looks all right. We might be in the clear here. All right, so now let's go back. Let's try this again. Hopefully I've fixed my Composer installation. Not really sure how it got broke. Awesome. Damn it. All right. I'm gonna delete this. Let's check this now. Oh, great. Looks like my editor has crashed. Make sure my live stream didn't crash. Alright, sorry about all this, guys. But this is part of development, so... Alright. I'm gonna try to attempt to just add this here. And... 1 second. My stuff moved, so I gotta put it back in the right spot. Alright, alright, so stripe /stripe PHP, and then we're going to install 6.31. Okay. So now I'm going to try to attempt to install that. You guys shouldn't have to ever do any of this crap. My problem is that all right. I have one more thing that I can do just to get through tonight. So, all right. This is what I'm going to do. What I'm going to do is copy this from another project. So, see, File system. This is a real bummer. Okay, so opt lamp, and I'm gonna open this in a new window as well. And I have htdocs, and I'm gonna open up live here and vendor, and I'm gonna open up vendor here. Let's see. Just gonna replace everything in here. Okay, and the other thing, I want to fix my composer.json. All right. Let's see if that gets me at least going for the video. Again, this is not recommended. I don't know what in the world happened to my composer install on this Linux machine, and I don't have time to fix freaking operating system stuff right now live. Let's see what happens here. All right, well, we don't have any errors, so I think that's working. The thing is Robert, no, this is not an update version. This is a whole new e-commerce site. This is better and all of that. So, all right. So here is, let's just go now to the Stripe and let's see what happens. Okay, so I just got a charge that came through. So if I click on payments, it says it succeeded, and let's take a look at, oh man, we're in good shape now. Okay, so now it succeeded. The amount was $9.99. We can see that, see if there was anything else. It was USD. So why did it do that? Why did it create a charge? Well, remember inside of our, back before I had all those technical difficulties, in the cart controller, we were just testing to make sure that Stripe and everything would work if we included it. So we did this test charge right here, and it charged for $9.99. Now with Stripe, they actually, you don't send the decimal, you actually send how many cents you're charging in US dollars, and they convert that. So this would be $9.99. All right, so we are up and rolling. Sorry I didn't think about that fix before. I just never really encountered that problem and had to kind of finish this on the fly. So now that we know that this works, I'm going to get rid of that code. We are actually in really good shape because now our autoloader and everything's working. We don't have to worry about any of this in this file. We're going to take care of that later. So the first thing that we want to do is inside of our documentation, they said, hey, make the test, make sure it works. Just basically just make sure that our composer install works well. So we're going to go to payments overview, and we are going to use the Stripe elements here instead of the Stripe checkout. So I'm going to go ahead and click get started with elements. Now this is their form that they add here, and so this is going to be super easy as well. So what we're going to do is we're actually just going to copy all of this information over to our stuff, okay? So what we do is going to copy all the HTML, and guess where that's going to go? It's going to go right in our view here. So I'm just going to paste that information in here. And then they have JavaScript that we need to add. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to add some script tags. okay? And so I'm going to click on their JavaScript, and then they had all of this. I'm going to see all the lines. So I'm going to copy all this JavaScript here. Now what this JavaScript is actually doing is this is actually stopping it from submitting directly to your servers, and this is what sends the credit card information directly to Stripe servers, okay? So this is important. So we're going to put that here. All right. So basically, I'm just showing, we're going to get it going first by just copying, okay? I'm not doing anything crazy here. All right. So this is a PHP file. Let me go ahead and just grab my yeah. So here though, this API key needs to be replaced, and this API key is going to actually be not the private key, because this is JavaScript. You never want to put your private keys inside the client so they can see it in the browser. You're going to use a public key here instead, and this is where we're going to use stripe_public, just like that, okay? And then from there, this is basically just some styling, not too worried about that. This line right here, basically, these two lines take this card element div that you have right here, and it replaces it with their card thing. So let's go ahead and see what happens now if we refresh the page. Okay, so we have this stuff here. This is actually probably working. We just need to make a few changes here for this to work with the CSS, okay? So we haven't done anything with the CSS yet. Let's go back to their website, and let's just grab their CSS. They just have a couple styles here. So I'm just going to grab that stuff. Copy it. And then I'm going to go to our CSS, and I'm just going to open up custom CSS here, and we'll scroll down here to the bottom. I'm just showing you exactly the steps that I went through to build this so you guys see how to do it, not just copying my code, okay? So I'm showing you, I'm looking in their documentation, just following right along. I'm not doing anything too crazy here. So I'll need to clear my browser cache because I just changed that CSS file. Let me do that. Okay. So the next thing that I want to do, if you can see right here, you can barely see it on my screen because it's so kind of washed out. This is actually that element. Okay, and that will work here just for a second. So let's see. Robert says, thank you. Does this one update the quantity amount in the database for products sold? We're going to do all that just a little bit different, guys. Don't think too much about the way we did everything in the old way. We're doing everything in the new, improved way, okay? This is not a replacement for the last one either. This is building an e-commerce site in an MVC fashion with more modern standards. Okay. So the next thing we need to do is I'm going to go ahead and start building out this, well, we can close, I'm not going to close, well, we'll close the CSS. I'm going to close a lot of these files because it's starting to get just a little bit, we don't need some of these open right now. Okay, I think these are the files we'll be working with in the immediate future. All right, so we got 45 minutes, guys. We can do this. We can do this. So the next thing here that we're going to need to do is just kind of give this some structure so that it shows up on our page correctly. And so in order to do that, what I'm going to do here is at the top here where we start the body, I'm actually going to move this script tag down as well. I'm going to add this right here. It's just kind of where I want to put that. All right, so then what we're going to do is wrap this form. So we're going to put a div. My caps locks are still on. So div, and we'll have a class equal row. Okay. The next thing I want to do is we're going to do a div with a class equal to call medium 8. And you'll see while I'm doing all this, it'll make sense. Okay, and then inside here, I'm going to give it an H3, and we're just going to put purchase details. Okay. The next thing that I want to do is inside this form, let's see, we need to move, let's see, I need to move this closing here after this form. All right. The next thing that we want to do is, let's see, I'm also going to move this column for now. That's going to be there. Let me fix all this indenting real quick. All right. So the next thing I want to do is kind of set these to match our other form elements. And so in order to do that, I'm going to go ahead and give this, instead of a form row right here, this is actually going to get a class of form group. And then we'll give it call medium, dang it, call medium 12. And then this label, we want to give this a class equal to control label. And then the last thing is this card element right here. We're going to give this thing a class. We're going to make that equal to form control. Okay. Let's see if there was anything else. These card errors, we'll go ahead and give those a class as well to kind of make a match. So we'll do text danger call medium 12 and a margin 3 there, margin bottom of 3. So let's see what this looks like. Okay, so this is, looks good now. You can see the whole card. Now Stripe lets you do a like a single, like if you're doing a test account, you can do a fake credit card number. So for a Visa, the fake credit card number that they want you to use so that they know it's fake is 4242. And as soon as I do that, it knows it's a Visa card, so it puts the Visa up there. So all just repeating 4242, 4242, 4242, 4242 will be a fake credit card. The next thing we have to do is give it an expiration month and year, so 221. The CVC code will be just 123, and then you can give it whatever zip code you want. Now, when this happens, it's going to submit that payment directly to the page. Okay. Now, why did it go to the charge page? Let's fix that real quick. So if you look inside the form here, it's just forwarding to form. That's not what we want. We actually want to put our own action there. So let's go ahead now and we'll just echo out our project root cart. Now I know that we're moving fast, guys, and there's a lot going on. You're gonna have to watch this a few times possibly. Just don't let it get you all flustered or anything like that. Just keep working at it and watch this stuff again and you'll understand it. So again, we're gonna use card ID. All right. So let's, if I go ahead now and we fill in all this information, it should post back to the same page. And it does, you just can't see that happen that quickly. So what happens now, and this is important, is when we do this, this credit card information isn't posting to our server, it's posting to Stripe. They then send back, they add to this, if we inspect the page, hopefully, they add to this form, oh, I see. We actually have an error here, but they add a hidden input with the token here. So let's go ahead and fix our mistake here. So I said this cart ID. So let's see what I did. Oops. And that's because I need to pass this down. So this view cart ID, and we'll just pass cart ID directly to that. Okay. So let's go ahead now and just continue to work up this experience of checking out. Okay, we're not too far off actually. We got quite a lot to do still in the Stripe gateway, but this isn't going to be super hard. So what we're going to do now is we want to let's see. I'm just going to build out our action, and then kind of looking at my example, and then we're going to go from there. All right, so the next thing that we need to do is we need to go ahead and check if this is a post. Okay, so if this request, remember we have this request object inside of here, if this request is post, which means they've posted the form, then we're going to handle that inside of here. So what do? What we're going to do immediately, we're going to change some of this, but we're going to actually call our function on our gateway, and this method or function or whatever is going to be called process form, and we're going to pass in all the form information. It's just going to say this request get. Okay, that's it. So if it's posted, we want to do this. So let's go ahead now and take a look at our Stripe gateway and finish up this process form method, or at least get a good jump on it. So remember, I'm going to give this a little bit of room. Here's our process form information, and it's expecting the post. Now the post will then come down here, and it will remember we're passing post in this way, so it's being sanitized from our input, and it's going right in here. Okay, so now that we have that post information, we're going to build out the charge that we got from Stripe. Now remember, they had that example, but what we're going to do is build out our own data. So starting off, the data is an array that we're going to pass in. So the array will be amount. So what is the amount? Well, the amount, remember, we already have this set up, but we have grand total, and that was set up in our abstract that we're extending, so that's going to be there. And we times that by 100. Now, why are we times that by 100? You won't have to do this most of the time, but in Stripe, they expect everything to come back in cents. All right, Denise, we'll bless you and thank you, and we'll see you soon. Robert, if I get some time, I will jump out and we will I will answer some of your questions, bud. Because I ran out a little bit out of time tonight, I want to try to get to a good stopping point at least. So currency here, in my case, is just going to be USD. You guys just go ahead and follow along, and if you use a different currency, you can change that later. But just follow along with what I'm doing, so make sure it all works first, and then you can look in their documentation to know what to do for you. The description I'm going to pass in. I'm just going to call this RUA purchase. You would use your own company name here. And then what I want to do is I just want to pass in this item count so it knows how many items that they're purchasing, okay? And then I'm also going to pass the cart ID in, and that will be this cart underscore ID. All right, the source is going to be the Stripe token that they give back to us. And so we're going to look for post, and it's just called Stripe token. Now this is just a hidden input that gets inserted into our form from Stripe because of that JavaScript. And we can see that if you go to stripe.php, you can actually see that happen right here. So what happens is it's listening for the form to be submitted. It prevents that submission from happening, and then it runs this Stripe create token, and it waits for a promise from the result. And if that comes back, then what it does is it calls this Stripe token handler, and that Stripe token handler takes that, it creates a hidden input on the form, it sets the attributes, and then it adds it to the form, and then it goes and submits that form, and that's what submits it to your server. So the JavaScript was adding that hidden input even though we didn't have it, and that's why we have access to it right here in this post information. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. The last thing that we want to do here is add shipping. I'm actually going to leave this off for now. We're going to come back to the shipping part of that. Okay, so that's the data. The next thing that we want to do is we're actually going to just set charge equal to this charge, and we're going to pass that data right into that. Okay, so let's check it out now. We need to go ahead and do this charge method now. So that's just an empty method, so that takes the data. Now, if you remember, what we did before was we added Stripe, set API key, and in this case we want to use our Stripe private API key. Okay, and then the token is equal to this is actually equal to data, and then Stripe token. All right, and then our charge is equal to charge, and we're going to include these in a second. Create, and then all we have to do then is pass that data directly down to that charge. Okay. And actually, honestly, we don't need this line right here. That's actually a mistake. So this is going to be super easy. It just creates the charge, and then it returns the charge. Okay? Sean asks, is there much difference between Lua and other frameworks? Like they work the same way? Some frameworks are a lot more robust and have a lot more to them. You're gonna find that this works similar to other MVC PHP frameworks. Mine is going to be a little bit unique. It's a lot simpler to use, but a lot of the method names are going to be the same as, like, for instance, Falcon. I used a lot from there because I'm used to using that. That's just naturally what I called the methods. But I'm going to have documentation available for this. And if you watch this live series, you're going to get a really good understanding of how the framework works from the ground up anyway. So I wouldn't be too concerned about it. But once you learn how to use this, it's going to be similar enough to other frameworks, yes. You're obviously going to always have to look at documentation for frameworks in order. You can't just use this code inside of another framework, but the ideas and the principles behind it should be similar enough to where you won't have any problems at all. Okay, so if we've done everything correct up to this point, which we still have to add these up here, So remember, all we have to do here is use, it was Stripe, and then we need to include Stripe method or object, and we use charge here. So if this is correct, this should actually work and charge the correct amount now. So if I go back and I refresh, and let's just look at our cart and see what that was. It was $230.90, and it has 4 items. So let's see if this works. So let's check out. Okay. Submit the payment. Okay, and let's go now and look at the dashboard and see if we have any new payments. And we do. We just got a payment for $230.90. But you look at the payment details, there's not much else here. It tells you, they give you some cool information here, like some fraud detection and stuff like that. But essentially, we have the Stripe gateway working now to where it is actually charging the card and sending that payment, excuse me, to Stripe. Now we want to take that a little further and do a little more, do more with it. We've got about 30 minutes, so we're going to see how far we get with this. But there's other things that we want to do with this. So let's go ahead now, and I guess the best thing for us to do at this point is go back and add some more information to the front end. For example, we want to go ahead and put over here where I left this blank space, we want to put a preview of the things we're buying, okay? So that's going to be pretty simple. Inside the Stripe view here, what we'll do is, let's go ahead and add okay, Stripe view, we're looking for the closing div tag right here. So we have a call medium 8. Now we're going to add another div right here. And this will have a class equal to call medium 4. And then what we're going to do here is we're just going to echo out, I'm sorry, we're not going to echo, we're going to insert a partial here. So we're just going to say this partial and it's going to live in the cart part, and we're going to call it product preview. So we need to build that out. So inside our views, let me just kind of clean some of this up so you can see what I'm doing. Inside views here, we're going to go to cart, and we're going to add a folder called partials. And inside that partials directory, we're going to create a new file, and that's going to be called product_preview.php. So let me open that up. So views, cart, partials, and this is going to be pretty simple here. We're going to do is just add an H3 tag, and we're going to put purchase summary. Okay, just putting HTML and PHP here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to actually loop through this items, okay, as item. Skip down a few lines and we'll do an end for each. Okay, and then in here what we're going to do is we're going to do a div. Let's see if this div dot cart, I don't know if I have Emmet installed. Preview item, I don't. Dang it. So div class cart preview item. Okay. So we're just going to loop through all of our items here. We're going to have div. The first thing is going to be like a little image preview, so we're going to call that cart preview item image. And then we'll actually put an image here. So the source is going to be equal to our project root, and then item URL. And then we can also give this thing an alt tag, and we'll set that equal to item name. All right, so now we have, that'll be our image. And this is going to look crappy until we do the CSS, but not a big deal. And then we'll do one more div here. We're almost done with this file, so it's not too bad. Cart preview item info. And then we'll do a paragraph tag, and we're just going to echo out item name. And we'll do another paragraph tag, and we're going to echo out item quantity. We'll do at, and then item price. Now, if you're just joining us, in the last video we created all of this object, so it's our cart items that we're looking at. Okay. All right, so item price. Then what we're going to do, let's see, we'll do one more, and we'll say shipping. We're going to echo out item shipping. Okay. So the last thing that we need to do here is we're going to do another div after the for each, and we'll give that a class equal to deflex justify content between. Okay, and then in here we're just going to do a div with a class equal to text bold. And we'll say total. And then duplicate that. And then here we're just going to echo out number format. We'll say this grand total, and we're going to do that to 2 decimal places. And I'm just going to add a little $sign right here. So there's a couple things we need to add in the controller to make this work. We need the grand total, and then we need items. Okay, so it's going to be super easy. So back here, we need to do this grand total, and that will equal our gateway grand total. Okay, and then this items is going to equal our gateway items. Remember, both of those things are set up in our abstract. If I refresh now, well, we tried to resubmit, so if I just go back to enter. All right, so we got some problems here. Not a problem, we'll figure that out. View items. And that's because I forgot to type view right here. So this view items, not this items, and this view grand total. Okay, sorry about the typo. So I refresh now, and now we got this stuff, which is what I expected. We just need to style it up a little bit. That'll be super fast. I'm gonna go back here, and I'm gonna open my CSS file up. So go back to our CSS, and I'm actually just gonna split right on this. And we don't need tons of room with that. Kind of scroll down here. All right, so here we go. Here's the, we go open up this over here. So we need a, oops, product preview. We need a couple of classes here. So we need cart, preview, item. And so this will be display, flex, border, 1 pixel solid. We'll do F5, F5, F5. We're going to do a border radius of 6 pixels. Box shadow, 2 pixels. 8 pixel spread. And we'll do 20% opacity there. And we'll give this thing a padding of 12 pixels and a margin of 18 pixels top and 0 pixels left and right. So top and bottom is 18, left and right is 0. Okay, so that's it for that. And then what we need to do is do cart preview item image, and then we're going to look at the image, the actual image element within that, and we're going to give that a height of 75 pixels, a width of 75 pixels, and then we'll do an object fit of contain, and we're going to do a margin right of 18 pixels. Yeah, Robert, that's important. You probably already left, but it's important for everybody to know that that we built this together, this framework, all of us, and so that's why we're using it. We're proud of it, and if you haven't gone through it yet, if you look at the series I did on the MVC framework, you can see how we built it, and then go into this, and that's a great way to do it. All right, so the next one we need is cart preview item info, and we're going to target the paragraph inside of that, and we're just going to say font size 12 pixels and a margin bottom of 6 pixels. And then the last thing we need to do with the CSS here is I'm actually going to do a cart preview item info, and then I'm going to target the first. So I'm going to do nth child 1. So I'm targeting the first one, and I want the font size to be 15 pixels and font weight to be bold. Okay. So I'm going to clear my cache real quick. Okay. So what we have is our purchase summary now, and it shows each item and the quantity of the item, and then it has the shipping, and then at the bottom it gives us our total for $230.90. If I go back to my cart and we modify this a little bit, so for instance we do two of Splendor, and let's do let's just do 2 Splendor. We go back here now and we can see that there's 2 at $35.99, and now the price is $276.88. So that is good. Let's see what time it is. We got 15 minutes. We're gonna have to bust out a lot in 15 minutes. Oh goodness. Okay. So what I want to ultimately do though is I want to actually take their shipping information as the first part of the form, and then I want it to forward to the credit card information afterwards. I want to make sure I have their shipping stuff first. So in order to do that, we're going to have to do a little bit of work here in the cart controller again. So we're back in the checkout action, and so we've made sure that this is all working for the actual checkout, which is great, but we need to do a little bit more. The first thing that we want to do is we want to create a row in our transactions table, and this is actually going to create the row, but we're going to verify their shipping information. So we're going to just call TX, and then we're going to do new transactions. So that will call a new object of our model from transactions. Let's make sure we have that included. Just need to add it right here. Transactions. Okay. And then once that's set up, what we want to do is, oh, by the way, we need to also add our cross-site request forgery protection, and so let's add that in as well. And we'll do that is the very top of this is post right here. So we'll do this, and then we can always just do this request CSRF for cross-site request forgery check. Okay, that's how the framework checks that. So we need to, in order for that to work, we need to add that to our form, and that's super simple. Up here inside the stripe.php, in order for this to work, we're just gonna open up some PHP tags here, and we're gonna say use use core FH. Okay, and then we'll close those PHP tags. And then what we can do is inside of our form here, it doesn't matter really where we put it, but I'm just going to put it right underneath the opening form tag right here. We're going to do a PHP echo form helpers cross-site request forgery input. And that's it. If you do those two things, you're going to protect against cross-site request forgery with this framework. Okay, so now that we have that, and we're just going to have to get as far as we get, guys, and we'll have to come back in the next video. I was hoping to get all the way through this, but we had those issues with the auto-loading and Composer and whatnot. I think that slowed us down a little bit. All right, so the next thing I want to do is we want to go ahead and validate our shipping. So in order to do that, we're going to do TX, and that's going to equal, we're going to do TX assign, and this request get. Now we want to add a whitelist to this so they're not just changing stuff in our deals. So we'll do this request get, and that's a method. And then we want to add a whitelist. So I'm just going to do that as a variable here. So whitelist. And then we have to add false for the third parameter if we want to use a whitelist over a blacklist. So what I'm going to do is right here, let's go ahead and declare whitelist, and that's going to be equal to an array. Let me close this CSS file here. So now what we need to do is add name shipping address 1. I'm just going to copy this real quick. Shipping address 2. And then we need city. State. Zip. And that's all I'm going to do for now. Okay, so that will assign it. And then remember what we needed to do was we needed to validate shipping. Now, if you remember right, if you looked in from the very beginning of the video, we went to models. We have this validate shipping method inside of our transactions model. So we're just going to call that from here. So after the tx assign, we're just going to run tx validate shipping, just like that. And that will validate our shipping information. Okay. So we need to pass a few more things down to our view so that we can display those form errors. So we're going to say this view form errors, and that's going to be equal to tx get error messages. Okay, so it's checking for errors on that transaction model. Let me see here what else we need. And we'll go ahead, I guess, and pass this view transaction. We'll just pass that right into our view there so that we can use that inside of our view. All right, so the next thing that we want to do, and this is going to get a little weird. Let's see how much time we have. 9 minutes. I want this to be a two-step process. And so up here after the post here, and after the cross-site request forgery check, and actually even after the TX stuff right here. Right here, what we're going to do is we're going to set step is equal to this request get step, and we're going to pass that back from the form. And I know we haven't talked about that yet, but step is going to be basically we're going to have a two-step form, so step 1 and step 2. So then we need just an if statement here, and we're just going to say if step is equal to 2. Then what we want to do there is we're going to move this process form into step 2. We only want that to happen if they've gone through step 1. Now step 1 is going to be our shipping address. Step 2 is going to be the actual charge. Okay, so we're going to check that out there. And then let's see. Then what we're going to do is we're going to set tx equal to response. Our response will be, sorry, I'm just looking at, yeah, that's going to be an array. So it's response tx, and we'll add that later, not a big deal. And then what we want to do is we're going to, if there's an error here, we're going to say if not response success, then that means there was an error with the charge, and so we need to add that to our error messages. So that's real easy to do. So what we can do there is we'll say tx add error message card element, and then we're going to add response message, and we'll add that later, probably in the next video because we're running way out of time. Else, if it is successful, then we're going to redirect them. So we're going to do a router redirect, and we're going to redirect them to cart thank you, and we're going to concatenate on the transaction ID there. So it'll be TX ID. Now I know we haven't really gone through this, so don't get discouraged yet if you don't understand what's going on. Just keep following along and it's going to come together. Alright, so the next thing we need to do is we need to tell it that this stripe right here, this form is actually step 2. And so the way that I'm going to do that is we'll just do an input, and this input is going to have a type of hidden. It's going to have a name of step and a value of 2. Okay, so it knows when this gets submitted that this will be step 2. Okay, all right, so let's see, I might go a few seconds over here, or minutes, but I'm going to try to finish up the shipping form really quick. So we'll go to our shipping address form that we created earlier. Okay, so here we go. We're gonna do PHP, and we'll say use core FH, so we can use our form helpers here. Okay, and then we're gonna skip down a few lines, and we'll say this start body. Basically, all we're doing here, guys, is building out a quick form. And we'll say this end. Okay. First thing we want to do, we're going to do a div, a class equal to row. And then we're going to do a div class equal to call medium 8. And I'm actually going to just duplicate this line. Oops. I'm going to duplicate that line and do call medium 4. And then this call medium 4, we're going to do the same thing we did earlier, where we say PHP this partial cart product preview. Okay. All right, so the next thing we want to do is we need to add, inside this section, we're going to add our form. So I'm going to give it a little breathing room here so it's easy to see. So in this, we're going to do an H3, and we'll say purchase details. All right, and then underneath that, we're going to do a form. We don't need all this. For the action, we're going to echo out our project root, cart checkout, and then we're going to echo out this cart ID. All right, and then let's see. First thing we want to do, remember, we're going to protect against our cross-site request forgery. So we'll do FH CSRF input. Okay. Next thing I want to do is do a div, the class equal to row. All right, and I'm going to put the input here. We'll do a type. Now this is going to tell it the step, and in this case the step is actually going to be step 1, because we want to do our shipping address first. So value 1. Okay, once we've done that, now we just need to go ahead and do our form helpers. So we have form helper, and the first thing we'll do is an input block. We'll be able to copy and paste a lot of these. So our input block, the first parameter that this is going to take is the type, so it's going to be an input. The next thing is our label, and then the ID and name of the field, and then the value, which will be this tx name, and then we can pass it our input parameters, our attributes. So we want to give our input a class, a form control, and then form control small, and then our surrounding div, we're going to give that a class, oops, that gets an array, and that will get a class of form group, and we'll do call medium 12. The next thing that we want to do is we want to pass in the errors to this, so we're passing in this form errors. Okay, so that's all we need to do to build that form block out that will also display our errors. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to copy that, and I'm going to paste that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we just need to go in and update these information. So the first one is just going to be shipping address, and then here, this will be shipping address 1, and then our next one will be shipping address continued. Let me just copy that, paste that. Okay, I'm just going to continue to go down and build these out. So then next thing we want to do is city, and that will be shipping city, shipping city. After city, we got state. So here, shipping state, and then zip code, shipping zip. Okay, the last thing that we want to do is just kind of set these widths of these. So the name will be 12. We'll do our shipping address, those will be 12, but then our city doesn't need to be a full width thing. So our city, we'll make that 6, and then we'll make the last two inputs 3. Okay, the next thing that we need is a submit button. So let's see, right outside of this div here, let's just do button. It doesn't even, I don't really need anything other than a class here. So we'll say button, button large, button primary, and then we're going to just put continue, because this is going to be a 2-step form. That's it for this file. So let's take a look now. If I go back here and refresh, I have an issue, and that's because inside of cart here, so in the cart controller, we need to tell it, hey, if it's step 1, then show that view. Else, we need to show the view from our gateway, right? So let's see. Right here where we're rendering this view, let's do a check here. We're going to say if step is equal, actually, we're going to do if not this request is post. So if it's not posted and you first go here, or if not tx validation passed, then we're going to show that shipping form. So we'll say this view render, and that was cart / shipping address form. Okay. If this request is post, got a $sign there. And then else, what we want to do is we want to render this view. Okay. So let's go back now and hit enter. And so now we're here and we have the shipping form. So let's go ahead and fill that out. So Curtis Parham. My shipping address is going to be 123 Main Street, Suite 101. And I'm actually going to just skip some of this here. Continue. And then when I try to continue, the validation is working. So it's saying, hey, you need a city. So Washington, Missouri 63090. Refresh. Now it takes us to the second part because that validation passes. And we got the credit card information. And now if we check out, which I'll need to change that button there. We have, let's see, add error message on null. Oh, so that's just because we're not passing this stuff back yet. So don't worry about that. We just haven't done that yet. It likely still worked. So if I go, let me close some of these tabs here. I go back to my dashboard inside Stripe, and we click on payments. We have a new payment here for $276.88. So we are in good shape there. All right, guys, it's after 10 o'clock. There's plenty more I wanted to get to tonight. Just kind of some examples of stuff we didn't get to is we weren't able to get to finishing up. We need to add the transaction to the database. So that we'll do that in the next video. And then we need to just finish up our Stripe gateway to have all of our information stored and do some error checking. So we didn't get to that tonight. We'll do that first thing in the next video. And then hopefully in the next video, once we have all this set up, it'll be pretty quick for us to add our PayPal gateway, especially if I can get Composer working. So at any rate, guys, I hope you guys have learned something tonight. I know I moved quick. Just go back, rewatch the video. But I think you guys are going to get it if we just, you know, you might have to rewind it a few times. And I know we haven't finished it up yet. So there's going to be some of this is going to be carried over to next week. I do apologize we didn't get all of the Stripe stuff done tonight. but we're well on our way, and we have it. We have all the hard stuff done. We just need to do a couple more methods, and literally we're done with the Stripe stuff for now. And then we can go ahead and start integrating other gateways, and we're going to do some cool stuff with, hopefully, with our dashboard and stuff like that to show our sales, our transactions back on our admin portal. All right, with that, guys, if you don't have any other questions, let's see here. Let's just make sure I didn't miss any. William says, I really need advice about Ionic frameworks integrating with PHP, like creating an app for this e-commerce site. The integrating has been impossible for me. I'm not really familiar with Ionic frameworks at all, so I can't really give you any advice. The only advice I'd give you is probably just learn one really well, and try to use the principles that you learn from one in the other. It's not going to be exact code copy, but it should be, the principles should line up. Arthur says, thank you, absolutely amazing tutorials. Hey, thank you, buddy. You've been here from the very beginning. I appreciate you. And all the rest of you, I appreciate more than words can ever say. So thank you guys so much. I'm fried for the night, but we will come back and hit it hard in the next video. So stay tuned, and I'll see you guys next Tuesday. And let me see if I can shut this thing off. Peace out.